now. Welcome to the show, Panos.
Hello, hello. How you doing?
This is my friend Panos. We met. I was trying to actually work out what year it was we met. I think 2014, but correct me if I'm wrong. We met outside Camden Roundhouse after a music event, and we had some kind of jam outside the front of Camden Roundhouse, and then we stayed in touch through music and various other things. And now you have taken a complete turn and got into your life coaching. It's really interesting to see. And I'd love to hear a bit about that journey from music to life coach.
Yeah, so my journey from music to life coach, I think I've always been, well, for a long time now, I've been interested in self-development, right? It must have been, I'm not quite sure how it kind of, when I started, I was always into psychology and kind of body language. But then I think about maybe 6 years ago, I started reading Napoleon Hill's The Power, Think and Grow Rich. And then I think that kind of escalated into just reading and then doing workshops and just doing various things. And it just kind of like, the ball just starts rolling with this stuff. The more you find out, the more you want to know. And then it's like, you just enter this whole world, right? It just keeps going, really.
It's a yellow brick road, isn't it? I always remember when I used to come around and see you, there'd always be a new book you'd be studying, and then that book would lead you to the next book, to the next book. And like you said, your knowledge just grows, and then it inspires you to go to the next thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I've still got like an infinite reading list that's just going on of things I want to read. But yeah, so that was kind of in the background, like learning all this stuff, but while I was still trying to do music. And then I think maybe last year I was just really thinking about where my life is going and just reflecting on things a lot, really, and what I really want to, what I want to be working on. And I was, I started working in a music studio doing content creation for them, which was just an amazing opportunity, and seeing the whole industry from the back. And I think that as time went on, I was just reflecting on, I was seeing people there who were like 10 years older than me, 20 years older than me. And it's amazing kind of seeing them, how they get on. And I was like, it kind of made me think about where I wanted to be in 10 years or so. And I was just like, I knew I wanted to do this eventually. So it was like, all right, why not now,
And it's amazing. It sounds like your job at Tileyard has been really inspiring. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing there and what it's taught you? And maybe for people who don't know, what is Tileyard? Because you told me about it and I was like, wow, how had I not heard of this? Tell people about Tileyard as well.
Yeah, Tileyard's an incredible place. It's a music studio. It's one of the biggest studio complexes in Europe. I think there's like 250 companies there now, probably even more. But they have people like Sagala and The Prodigy, Lily Allen, Dimension. They've all got their studios there. So I think when I first went there, I was like, trying to get into the music industry, I was like, oh my God, this place is just amazing. So I managed to get in there doing content creation, like video work for them, which is just an incredible opportunity. And I've learned so much from being there, especially about building a brand and how I want my brand to look and stuff like that. Yeah, and content, just putting content out. Yeah. If
you could narrow it down to like 3 really big lessons, what would they be? Putting you on the spot here.
I think one thing I learned was actually getting a job there, right, was actually quite a learning curve for me, because basically I really wanted a job there, and I know I'm quite a determined person, and I was trying for quite a while to get in there, and I was basically just hanging around in the coffee shop there for quite a while, and I was really chatting to people, and I think I was literally trying to get a job there for probably about 1.5 years. And in the end, I kind of wouldn't take no for an answer. I was like, oh, just calm down, I'll create content for you. You don't even have to, if you don't need me to do anything, I'll just sit in the coffee shop and in the end, my first day there, they were like, oh yeah, you're the new intern. And then within 3 months, I had a job there. So I think that kind of really taught me about persistence, which was a great lesson to learn. What's the second one is probably, once again, I think also spending every day doing something, how much you progress in that. I think when I went there, compared to like my video editing and you know, filming, compared to I went there to compared to where I am now after about, you know, a year and a half of being there, I think it's just like escalated so quick. I was doing content before, but I think being in such quite a high performing place where everyone there is like, you know, quite high achievers and big brands and stuff. So I think that really pushed me to really get good. So that made me realize, you know, if you do something every day for at least even a year, you're going to get really good at it. And also, like I say, I think just building a brand. You know, when I first went there, I got the brand guide from them, and then kind of building moving images around that, and then seeing how that gets put out was a real lesson for me. So, and it's something I try and really use now with LifeShift, like my own business and the content I put out. So yeah, that was a real interesting for me.
Have you got one final one? Or I can move on. I've got lots of questions about what you just said.
Okay, yeah, no, go for it. Go for the questions.
Okay, so first it's just a technical question, because I love video editing, and at the moment I've just got the basic iMovie, which you can actually do quite a lot with. But I wondered what software you're using for video editing now.
I love Premiere Pro. I've always used Premiere Pro just because I love the Adobe Suite. You know, you use Photoshop and drag stuff in and that. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they've got an amazing deal with a monthly subscription, and you get everything that they do.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I think when I first started working there, because I was working in higher education as well, which is an educational department, I got their brand for like £13 a month or something. The whole suite.
Yeah, incredible. Absolutely incredible. And the other thing that I was thinking about what you said, you were saying about this idea of daily progression and improvement. And it reminded me, you were talking about the book Think and Grow Rich. And he talks about that, I think he calls it the law of hypnotic rhythm, of that things start spiraling upwards. That's something that I've definitely seen in my life, like a little and often is really where real results happen. I think so many of us, when we're in a rut, we want some kind of overnight change, but overnight change never happens overnight. It's like 3 years later, you're like, oh, hang on, everything's different because I just did a little tiny bit every day and the whole scenery switched.
Yeah. I think that's where like enjoying the process really just comes into play, you know, like knowing where you want to be, but then also just enjoying the process and embracing the process, because you got to know that you're not going to be amazing when you first start. So yeah.
Isn't that so key, enjoying the process? Because we've both been in this pursuit of a music career, and it's so that's definitely not overnight, and it's just the same thing. You have to enjoy the process, otherwise you're never going to improve. And I've been working more on enjoying the process, even if it's sometimes a bit of a boring task. You know, sometimes editing can be long. Have you got any tips or thoughts on how you make the sort of more boring parts of your business entertaining to you?
I think it's like looking at a bigger picture, right? Like, you know, I think you've got, you know, every part of a business, right, is going to have a little bit of a boring side, but ultimately I do love what I'm doing at the moment. I think like when I was setting up LifeShift, I was talking to someone about this last night, and the website it was taking me so long to try and set up, and I was really like getting lost in the detail, but I kind of enjoyed every part of it because I think it was going towards a bigger picture. And I think that's what I've kind of always loved, is like building that thing up. So just embracing the process is a huge part of it. I was actually going to I shot a video on this recently. I'm going to release it actually. And it's about detachment from outcome, you know, and if you read the Bhagavad Gita, a lot of that basis of that book is about basically the detachment from outcome. And it's kind of this whole war I've had a bit with the law of attraction, which not war, but like there's a, you know, the split. It was about, as you said, like the balance a little bit every day. It's like the balance in the middle, right? Because I think that for me, visualizing, for a while now, especially since reading A New Earth of Eckhart Tolle, like I don't like to visualize like a huge amount, because then I always felt like it was taking me away from the outcome. I mean, sorry, taking me away from the process or from presence, yeah, like being present. But when I read the Bhagavad Gita, it kind of like, I think you've got to really understand the result you want, the end result, but then actually also just embrace the presence and embrace the process. And that's like, just, you know, the detachment from outcome. And that can just fall into, I think, so many parts of your life. Like, even if you're in a relationship, like, you can visualize how you want your relationship to be, but if you try and push that too much on the other person, that's like, it's not really fair either. So it's just that detachment from outcome is just, you know, just embracing the process in the present moment.
Definitely, that's such a tricky balance that I've always tried to navigate my way around, because I'm so driven, and sometimes I'll just overdo it in the pursuit of something and burn myself out. And now I'm trying to find this balance of doing what I love, but, you know, slow and steady wins the race. And I think it's really easy to detach from outcome when you're enjoying the process. In the past, I was just miserable and stressed, and I was waiting for a result to give me the happiness. And now if I enjoy every day, and every day is just fun, whether I'm just doing admin stuff on my computer or doing something more creative, if every day's fun, then I'm not it's not like, oh, I'll be happy when, because that's when it doesn't work, doesn't it? When there's always like, because the goalpost always moves. You know, you get one, you're like, oh yeah, cool, like, I've got all these hits, or I've got this thing. And then you're like, oh, but I want something else now. Like, the dissatisfaction's always there. I'm learning to be satisfied every day.
Yeah, I think that's just a huge part of it, really. Because it's, as you say, the goalpost always changes, and you always hear those things of people who like build all these massive things, but then they're like, oh, I'm still miserable. And it's like, yeah, just be happy now.
Yeah. Good little motto. I love the book Think and Grow Rich, and I also loved the one that he wrote, Outwitting the Devil. Have you read that?
No, I haven't actually. Yeah.
Okay, so that one I really recommend you reading, because you'll love it, and anyone who's watching, because it's a bit controversial. Before Think and Grow Rich got released, Napoleon Hill had a psychotic break, and he wrote this book called Outwitting the Devil, which is him having a conversation with the devil, but not like the devil in sort of the religious sense of a character, you know, in red with horns, but this idea of the devil being the fear that stops you. And the book's written as a conversation between him and the devil. And his wife apparently was so embarrassed of the book, she wouldn't let him release it. So it only came out, I'm not sure what year, but within the last 20 years or something. So it's one of those books that a lot of people haven't heard of, because it didn't get the same hype that Think and Grow Rich did, but it's just another perspective on the same lessons in Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I think like writing to yourself like that is just such a good idea. And also, like you say, like, you know, about facing something like fear, it's just incredible. Kind of reminds me of active imagination. You know, I don't know if you know about that. It's a technique of basically writing to like a part of yourself, but using like a figure, creating a figure as that part of yourself.
Okay, so I Instagram stalked you a bit and watched some of your videos, and there was one on there about journaling. Maybe you could tell us about this as an exercise for, you know, I'd love to try it out, and maybe again people at home might be interested.
Yeah, so active imagination is I mean, there's loads of different types of journaling. I think I made a few different videos on different techniques, but as that process I just talked about, active imagination is basically just a Carl Jung technique, and I'm like just such a massive fan of Carl Jung. Like, I try to read as much of his stuff as possible, but it's basically about creating a, you know, a lot of Carl Jung's work is kind of trying to bring together the unconscious mind to the conscious mind. And so with this technique, it's basically your conscious mind and writing to the unconscious, but creating a figure to have that conversation with. It makes it just a lot easier to have that conversation with it. So say you're having, like you say, maybe you feel fear about something, you could kind of, it's quite a surreal activity to do, but you could basically sit there and go like, I just want to talk about this fear I'm feeling, kind of, is there anyone there, or, you know, why am I feeling this? And then kind of use your imagination to create a figure and see what comes up. And then basically you can write it basically like a script and say, you know, have the initials for that person, but they might not have a name. You can ask them, do you have a name? If they don't have a name, then maybe just put like what maybe, you know, what they look like, kind of thing, you know, just a letter for what they might look like. And then basically just have a dialogue with it. And it's just a hugely therapeutic idea. It's kind of a lot like the way therapy would work, right? It's a mirror. It's kind of the same way as journaling, but you're actually having a dialogue with this character.
I love that. In Napoleon Hill's book, I'm not sure if it's Think and Grow Rich or this other one I've read, Outwitting the Devil, but he suggests the idea of for inspiring yourself to create a round table in your mind of people who really inspire you. Yeah. So they might be spiritual figures, you know, music figures, even family members or friends who always have good things to say, and put them in your mind in a round table and really build this vibrational room where you go to for ideas. And then you can go and present your problem or your challenge and ask everyone at the table for their suggestion. And it's another way of activating your imagination. And I do think it helps you. We're so stuck in our own mind rut, and that's what can cause our problems. So to step out and become somebody on the round table, or to become the character of fear, it's a way of just getting out of that loop that we get stuck in.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so amazing. Once again, that's just the way of, you know, connecting that unconscious, really, you know, like it's exactly, yeah, as I was kind of saying. It's just, yeah, I think these things are all just amazing, because rather than maybe running from problems, you know, like as coaches and therapists say, like a lot of the answers are kind of within us. So it's just about finding ways to access that, basically. And, you know, ultimately your ego is going to kind of protect you, right? It doesn't want you to go down those paths sometimes. But if you kind of give them a name and give them a figure, then it's a lot easier of accessing them.
Definitely. And I think it's all about building up that tool library so that whenever you have any kind of stress or problem or challenge, you have the right thing to go to. And this brings me nicely onto, you've just built your website, which has got lots of tools on it. Perhaps you could tell us about what you've been working on your website.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this website I've been working on for quite a while, and there's quite a few things on there. So there's like the events page, which I run the workshops with. There's also my one-to-one and how to get in touch with me if you want to work.
Maybe tell us about the workshops.
So the workshops, yeah, I've been doing them for quite a couple of months now, and they've been awesome. Like basically, I try to limit them to a small number, and they're basically like group sessions. But anyone can come to the workshop and talk about whatever they want, really. And it's like hopefully inspires other people in the workshops also. And it's actually really amazing. Like I've kind of learned so much about myself and just things that are coming up from the workshop, because it's quite funny. I find that each session always has a theme. So I don't know how it's always happened, but basically everyone who comes to the workshop in that session, they've always had the same kind of issue, or they're at the same point. It's just magic. I don't know how it happens. And so the workshop always has like a theme for that time. And I try and also run through a little meditation at the end, so people can kind of reflect on that. But yeah, I guess like it's kind of hard to describe, because the event is also just run by the people in it. So ultimately, you know, they bring what they want to talk about to the session.
So it's effectively a form of group coaching or group therapy, something like that?
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah.
And you said you've been making some meditation videos as well. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, they're not, they're kind of not, they're not so much videos. So they are actually videos, but you are meant to do them like you would traditionally a meditation. And basically, but they're quite active meditations. So on my website, you can go and you basically subscribe, and a monthly subscription, and you get access to quite a few meditations. I've like kind of written them all myself, and I've tried to make them as active as possible in terms of a result that you're going to try and get from them. So some of them are like healing past trauma, and, you know, linking to parts of your body where the trauma is stored, and then going back to their memory and changing it. I'm using a lot of going back and healing that. So they're super powerful. Another one's like a shadow meditation, how to find your shadow, like, you know, the idea of Carl Jung, by use kind of a mirroring technique. And actually this taught me so much about myself using this technique, like finding something that maybe triggers me about someone else, and then seeing that within myself, or where that is, or where I might be denying that, or how I can integrate that to make myself more whole, or more kind of complete, and more maybe powerful if I want to use that side of myself as well. It's just super powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about shadow work, but I don't really, you know, I think, you know, my background, I've worked a lot with psychedelics, and psychedelics definitely show you your shadow, or or everything you're doing wrong. Oh, I don't want to see it because I want to be nice and I don't want to look at this. What are some practical ways that we can work with the shadow without drinking ayahuasca?
Yeah, so as I say, like, mirroring is a good one, and that taught me so much about myself.
I don't know what mirroring is.
Okay, so as I say, like, a lot of it is mirroring from someone. So imagine you have someone who triggers you, right? And often it's more of a trait or something they do that will trigger you. And actually, if you kind of look into probably a lot of people that you kind of know, maybe there's elements of them that you're like, oh, that's kind of, I don't know if I would do that, or that triggers me about them, or something like that. Not triggers you about them, but, you know, maybe disagree or something like that. But if you take someone who does really trigger you, and then look at what triggers you about, try and get really specific about that trait, and then try and reflect that trait see that trait within yourself. Because a lot of the time, these things are within ourselves. All that happens is your persona, you know, the idea of the mask you're trying to put to the world. It doesn't want to show you that side of yourself, you know? So like, you could maybe have anger issues, but you don't want to admit that within yourself. And you look at someone who seems quite angry on the outside, and you're like, look at that person, like, having all this anger, you know, those angry, but really you are kind of angry as well, but you just don't want to admit to that side of yourself. And so you kind of hide it away, but that's not good, because really then you're just suppressing it. What you kind of want to do is either acknowledge it and maybe release it in a healthy way, or just, just sometimes as well, you can integrate it in a healthy way. So for instance, one thing that I always found was I was quite always like a submissive. I was, you know, not a kind of dominant character. So when I come across guys who are like quite alpha and quite dominant, I was always like, you know, maybe felt a bit more triggered by them, maybe a bit more frightened, maybe, or also like, oh, I wouldn't treat people like that, or so kind of thing like that. But actually, you know, when I was doing a lot of this kind of work, I realized actually there's instances where I have been quite boyish, and, you know, so I think just trying to recognize that part of myself and see where I can use that actually in more of a healthy way to basically use that kind of characteristic, and know when I'm in that energy, and know when I'm using it. Yeah.
So when we start looking at ourselves and we see our feelings, so I know what to do when I'm sad and I can cry, but anger is the worst. And when I'm angry, I find it very hard to, what should I be doing when I'm angry?
Well, I think it depends on what you're angry about, right? It depends on what you're angry about, really.
Anger's a physical thing, though. When you're angry, it's like, I think it feels dangerous, you know, because, you know, you think of like an angry animal, it's going to lash out. And I don't know, it's led me down a train of thought about violence, and you know how there's this massive problem with COVID and people being at home, and there's more cases of domestic violence, and that's all domestic violence is. It's uncontrolled anger. You have that anger within you, and it feels very dangerous, and then you take it out on someone close to you, and that's scary, isn't it? So how can we have that feeling of anger and like and use it in a healthy way, because it is physical?
Well, I think like you could probably, if you have that problem, like exercise, or I don't think it necessarily has to be physical, I think it's the same as every other emotion in your body, right? Like if you feel anxious about something, I'm like a huge believer that a lot of these emotions that come up, you should be able to kind of control them and just let them have their place. And so sometimes you could kind of just sit in your anger, and that's kind of a bit like what my unconscious release meditation does. So just kind of sit with that feeling for a bit and breathe into it. I love breathing techniques like pranic breathing, where you kind of breathe in for 6, hold for 3, and then breathe out for 6, and really just feel it fully, but allow it to kind of express itself and then go. But I guess, like you say, if you need to really physically express it, then possibly you can go and do some exercise or go for a run or so.
Yeah, exercise is a great one, and breathing, definitely. They're really good tools. I love breath work. And I think with I know you've been doing these kind of release exercises. Is breath work ever included in them?
Yeah. So they are. There's quite a lot of breath work in my meditations. I think it's just a great way to release a lot of, what you might feel inside, any pent up things. It's just such a great way to release a lot of that. Like I say, anxiety. Like they do a lot of things like box breathing, where you can kind of breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and then go all the way up to like 8, and that can really sometimes. But just before you do that, you can even just go into your anxiety and just be like at peace with it, just feel it fully, which was something that really actually healed me massively a lot when I was going through a lot of this stuff. When kind of early in my kind of journey of this stuff, was I had a lot of anxiety when I was younger. And it got to the point where it did get quite uncontrollable, and I felt like I was always trying to run from it. But actually, just kind of sitting with it, when I first heard about this idea, just sitting with it and going, all right, do you know what? When I feel anxiety, I'm just going to sit with it. And I just sat with it, and like sometimes it would get quite bad, and I'd feel it all in my hands, like I was having a proper kind of panic attack. But I would really just kind of sit with it and just allow it to just take over me, and realize actually, it can kind of get to this point, but it's not really going to go anywhere else. And then after that, I would just breathe and release it. And then just, and then you stop kind of fearing your mind, and you become at peace with where it can go.
Yeah, because I think that's really, it's the war in your mind that's the problem. Those feelings are there, and they're there for a reason. And anxiety, really, that's just there to protect you. We've all been through difficult things, and the anxiety just wants to keep you safe. And that that really inspired me. I remember you telling me about that years ago, about this idea of feeling it, and it's so scary. And I've done it with I think it's nice having a held space. So I think it's great that you're offering your workshops and things for it, because I did it with a psychotherapist called Sean Chiddy. He works with lots of psychedelic integration, but then he's also got a background of psychotherapy. And he just held space for me to be able to feel the feelings, because when you're on your own, I don't even know what you think is going to happen. Like when you're like feeling anxiety, what do you think, you're going to die? Like it's all like imaginary fear, isn't it? Because really it feels horrible. It's horrible. Like you said, the physical feeling I get, like I had like really bad sort of burning in my hands, chest pain, heart racing, stomach. It's awful. But it's funny, because if you're not scared of it anymore, and you're like, oh, hello, anxiety, here we go. Just let it, okay, it's all here in my hands. I'm really going for it. And it can't take hold of you or control you or ruin your life anymore.
Yeah. And then often you'll find that like there's maybe a root behind it, like you're anxious about something. Like if you're gonna, like perform on stage in a few days, and you'll feel anxious about that. And I think that's just perfectly normal, right? You can feel anxious about that. That's cool.
Yeah, I did a live stream Facebook concert yesterday, and we've been telling people about it, I don't know, for the last month. And I didn't realize like how much it was like gradually sort of like, because after we did it, I was like, and then all of today I felt so relieved. And it's funny, because that is just normal. Like it's normal to feel a bit stressed about things. And Simon, who I'm making the music with, his wife said, do you get nervous before a show? And I said, it's not really nervous. It's I'm coming online, like as in everything in my body comes online. Like now, even when I'm having this chat with you, it's a different state I'm in than when I'm just like chilling watching Netflix. And what's amazing is the more you get used to going into these states, then you're not scared of them anymore. Because I used to get really bad stage fright, and like my actual body would shake. I remember one of my first concerts with my guitar, my leg was just like this. And I actually just had to make a joke about it to the audience. I was like, sorry, my leg is doing its own thing. And through the process of just being okay with all of these funny reactions, then they dissolve. But I think that's where sort of stage fright comes in, because you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna forget my words. It's like, well, what's the same thing? What's the worst that could happen? You might forget your words. Fine. You can make a joke about it. Your leg might shake. Fine. Make a joke about it. Humor is a great tool.
Yeah. I started doing that when I was actually first running my workshops as well, because I'd be quite nervous because I was like, I didn't know who's going to show up. I was like, early to this stuff, and then and I still get like a little bit nervous maybe because, like I said, I don't know who's going to show up and stuff, so how the session's going to go. But I just normally say, and like I do a check-in round where everyone just says how they feel and stuff, and I'm like, in the early stage I was like, yeah, I'm fucking nervous as fuck kind of thing, like, but it's cool. Kind of sometimes calling it out is kind of better, I think that way as well. If you're down, like I very rarely kind of feel down these days, but then there's some days where you might feel a bit down about things, or maybe not going your way or whatever, and you get a bit down about something, or say like a relationship might come to an end or something like that. And I think that like sometimes just kind of almost like overplaying that downness is like the funniest thing, like almost at like Bridget Jones or something, and just stick on like a sad movie and sit there with the tub of ice cream. I'm so down, like.
I've done that recently. I was talking to someone about that bored feeling, like, oh, I'm so bored, and then really just being like, oh, what do bored people do? Oh, I'm just gonna sit and do nothing because and everything's, I definitely think the same thing, just humor, just making a joke about how ridiculous you are, like making all these big dramas in your mind and getting so stressed and down, and the unnecessary theatre of it that you still need to go through, of just like, oh, woe is me.
Yeah, but I think these are just natural things. That's why, like they're just natural emotions, and they're going to come up, right? Throughout your life, from time to time. So
you, just coming back to Think and Grow Rich, because I just love Napoleon Hill. Another thing you might not know about is it's either on Netflix or Amazon Prime. You can watch these really funny educational videos he made of him sat behind this really naff desk presenting all his ideas. And I think it's like when TV first came out, because they're so naff and sort of stiff, but his information is so great. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I just wondered, was there any other parts of Napoleon Hill that really, Think and Grow Rich, that have really stood out to you, that really, you said that book had a big impact on you? Were there any particular ideas?
I think like when I read that book, it was the first book I read about the Law of Attraction, and I made a video about this, and it's in like, my top 3 kind of books. And I read that book quite a long time ago now, and I think I was at a point in my life where I was, when I was trying to first make it in music, and I think there was quite a few things in my life that I didn't feel control over, and I didn't feel very hopeful about. So I think that reading that book, one thing it did was give me a lot of hope. And I think hope, when you're in a bad place, is just like huge. Sometimes you just got to know that things are going to get better. And I think that's what Think and Grow Rich did for me when I first read it.
Yeah, it's got something in it. I can't remember the exact quote, but this idea that failure doesn't mean that you're a failure. And he tells his story about how long it took him to get to where he is. And the whole thing with Think and Grow Rich is he studied loads of successful people and studied their lives. And there's nobody who had it easy. You just be a complete fool and completely naive to think that everything's going to be handed to you on a golden platter. So this revelation that failing and feeling scared are part of the process, and then you can embrace them rather than thinking, oh, that one thing didn't work, I should just give up now.
Yeah, see, it's really funny. I saw a post on Instagram. I think it was yesterday morning. I was just scrolling through my Instagram in bed, and you see like one of those meme kind of things, and it said like, would you rather go back to, would you like rather take the red pill and go back to the beginning of school, knowing what you know now, or would you rather take the blue pill and be 50 and have like 50 million in the bank? And I think that was just such a really interesting idea, because I was like, the problem with just ending up being 50 and having 50 million in the bank is that you wouldn't really, it's so much about what you learn along the way. And I know it's such a cheesy thing to say, but it's so kind of true. Like if I was to go back to school, knowing what I know now, I would be like, oh my God, I feel like, well, first of all, I'd feel like happy a lot of the time. Whereas I used to be more of a negative mindset. So I kind of almost would love to just replay it again and see how I could just, see things from a different perspective, because now I have just such a different perspective on things.
Yeah, I hope that these tools, as it's getting, all this information is getting more and more widespread with meditation and mindfulness. I was quite surprised to find out that my nieces and nephews, they get taught meditation at school, and my cousin actually is part of a big project. I think it might even be just called mindfulness in schools, and they train teachers up in how to teach it to children, and then they're teaching it to them. And I think that is just, what a great tool to start out life with, because for me, that is the foundation. And in all of these conversations I've had with different people from different spiritual traditions, different, paths they've studied, it always comes back to meditation. And it's almost like meditation can heal everything. It's not the overnight thing. It's a bit like what we were saying before, a little bit every day. But I've been amazed at just that small amount of meditation every day, how that's given me that view of my mind and given me space.
Yeah. And just the little things, like just the little things you learn along the way, the little life lessons that you kind of go, oh, well, I'm not going to do that again, or, I'll do that differently next time or so. It's just, it's just so rich. But I mean, hopefully if you learn from things and your mistakes, then by the time you are 50, then hopefully, you'll be super wise.
Yeah, if you actually, Ram Dass, one of the spiritual teachers that Ram Dass spoke to, they just said to him, you're Ram Dass, why not take the curriculum? As in, your life is happening to you. This is your life, your experience, your lessons. Either you embrace that and you learn from that, or you just shut off from it. And there's so much power in just really embracing what's happening to you, the good and the bad, and using that as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I say, so then you can learn for next time, look at maybe, I don't know, like hurtful relationships you got into and the way they turned out. If you don't learn a lesson of why they became like that, then, you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over. You got to keep learning, right? It's like nothing to lose, everything to learn.
And you said that Think and Grow Rich was one of your top 3 books that influenced you. I'd be interested to know what the other 2 were.
So they were, that was quite a hard video to make, because obviously there's so many books, and I was like, at the end of the video, I was like, I'll probably make another like 5 videos about it.
Yeah, these are all 10 of my top 3 books.
Yeah.
Top 30 books.
Yeah. But the second one was, what's it called? Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth.
Oh, classic.
Yeah,
Such a good book.
I remember reading that. I was just blown away. And I remember when I read that, I just had such a profound idea of presence. So a clearer image on it, because like when I first heard about The Power of Now, I didn't really read it. I was kind of late to the party with The Power of Now. And but then when I read A New Earth, it really just hit me. It was just incredible. And also, like, as I talk about in the video, it helped me map out my mind a lot and understanding my ego. Because like I say, I used to be very introverted and shy. And it talks about shyness in that video, and that it's just part of your ego trying to protect yourself. So it really helped me understand a lot about myself, which was just incredible as well. Yeah, if anyone hasn't read that book,
got to read it. And Power of Now, they're both good in different ways, aren't they? I one of my really big takeaways was about the pain body, and he explains our stress and our trauma. It's almost like using imagination again, that it's not part of you, that it's almost like a ghost that just travels around and messes you up. And he talks about your pain body being activated. And what's funny is me and my mum, we read it at a similar time. And when I, were on the phone and she annoyed me, and rather than like shout at her, I was like, Mum, my pain body has been activated. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah. That's a great idea as well, yeah. I did a workshop actually about pain body, which is really interesting, called Rebirthing. You've heard of that, right?
Oh yeah, you've told me about it, but I'd love you to tell everyone about it because it sounded so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tried it again. It was actually a very, it was at a festival called Into the Wild, and like, I love being really open to all these ideas, but I don't necessarily take them on as something I would practice all the time, but I love trying them all out and seeing what works and seeing what fits for me. So I heard about this workshop and I went to it, and basically it's, he said, oh, we're going to bring out your pain body in it. And we were all lying on the floor. There was loads of us lying on the floor, like 30 of us in this tent. And he said, just breathe in and out, like really shallow breaths. Like, so we all started doing it. And
was it like Wim Hof breathing? No, shallow, you're saying?
Really, really shallow breathing.
Okay.
Kind of like, is it called asphyxiating yourself almost?
Like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Oxygen from your body. Like, I don't know. So all of a sudden I started feeling my mouth going really, really numb. And then like my whole face and my neck. And it was really weird. Like, I was basically, by the end of it, I was basically paralyzed, just lying on the floor. My hands are like this. And I was like overheating like crazy, but it was just the most, I felt like I was like pins and needles all over my body. It was the craziest feeling. But actually he just said, keep breathing, you'll come on the other side. And like, there's a lot of people around just screaming and stuff. It was quite an intense experience. But when it came to the other side, it was just amazing feeling of like euphoria. Yeah, I never really did it again. And I've been back to that festival a couple of times and they've had the workshops, but I don't know how much I'd do that again. I think it maybe wasn't so much for me, but I can see why a lot of people would find that quite amazing.
Well, I think I always recommend breath work to people who are interested in psychedelics, but also scared, because the thing about breath work, like, you were saying you were getting all those pins and needles and everything. If you just stop the breathing exercise, it stops. Yeah. But when you have taken a psychedelic substance, it doesn't stop. Like, you can't get off the train. So breath work's really good for that. And Stanislav Grof, who was doing all the experiments with LSD, therapeutic LSD back in the, I don't know if it's late 60s, early 70s, when it all got shut down, he discovered breathwork as a portal into psychedelic consciousness. And I just think it's amazing, the power of breathwork, and you explaining that experience. And also that perhaps you don't even really understand it. Like, you didn't really understand what happened then, but yeah, something went. You felt like some kind of release and relief afterward. That's incredible.
Well, I think it's a lot like, as I talk about in my meditations with pranic breathing and box breathing and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, your breath is just so powerful. And it is just a way of, yeah, like say releasing or even taking you to other places. I mean, a lot of like, Vipassana is just focusing on your breath for like 20 minutes or an hour. And so, so that's just so powerful in itself as well.
What other kinds of workshops are they doing it Into the Wild? I can imagine it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. It's an awesome festival though. You love it.
Yeah, I know you were telling me I need to go. I think I'll have to go next year, because I've been to Buddhafield, which is, I think it's a bit similar, that it's just constant workshops, all different kinds of things. And I think there's something really nice as well about being in a place where that everyone's up for all these weird things. And then I've met so many great people and had really inspiring conversations because everybody's up for these weird breathing exercises or whatever weird stuff's going on.
Yeah. You do feel also like after I feel like every time I've gone, I've experienced quite a lot of things, even, no matter what the workshops I've done, I've always learned a lot about myself or other things. So you normally come away from the weekend feeling quite just awakened and, just wow, like I've had a little breakthrough and, doing one little workshop, or it's just, it's an awesome weekend. It's cool.
Have you missed those things with it being lockdown, or how's it been? Workshops, festivals, live music.
I through lockdown, I really saw it as an opportunity though to really grow my business as much as possible. So I did, which I'm super fortunate about. So I did spend a lot of time trying to focus on that, any weekend stuff. So I didn't really notice lockdown kind of, I just spent so much time working. I didn't even really think about things I was missing out on. But now as it's coming out of it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to, even just go to a bar or something and I just sit like 2 meters from someone else. So yeah, I do miss, because I love socializing as well so much, so yeah, I do miss it.
I've been really inspired to see what you've been doing during lockdown, and I recommend everyone check out his Instagram page and his YouTube. You'll see links below this video. He's been making the cat's mother, Panos. Panos has been making really nice videos, and they're really inspiring. And also I just love how you've made the effort to make them so scenic, because so many self-help videos are just like naff in like very sterile, and Panos has filmed them in the woods. They're absolutely beautiful. Where is that woods? Where are you filming them?
They're all filmed in Trent Park in Cockfosters, which is an amazing woods if you haven't been there. Just like really far North London.
And you're living in Camden now, right?
Yeah, living in Camden.
Okay, nice. Cool. I've never been up there, but I do. There's some really nice woods around me, and I just, there's that whole thing now. I think it's called Shirin-yoku, forest bathing, just going and walking around the forest, and it's just an obvious basic thing that when you're walking around the woods, just everything slows down.
Yeah. I think I love spending as much time in the woods as possible. I actually watched this video recently, which really made me feel like, yeah, I definitely want to do, film these in the woods. And in the future, I really want to do my workshops in woods as well. Because I was watching this documentary, it was like the 5 best techniques for releasing kind of trauma and helping with trauma. And actually number 1 was spending like a minimum of 20 minutes in the woods. And like, if you can, especially barefoot, which is just amazing. So I don't know, every time you walk around the woods, you always just feel like, yeah, like a bit calmer after.
Oh, definitely. Were there any other things on that list? I think I need other things from that list, please.
Yeah, I think one of them was actually music therapy. One of them was dance therapy. I think they were like 2 and 3. I can't remember the other 2. One of them was this thing that they put on your head, and I can't remember the name of it, but it basically
binaural beats, something like that, or EMDR, where the sound moves.
I think it just scans something in your brain to find pathways and it reawakens parts, because they were talking about how, like, when you've gone through traumatic experiences in your life, you're actually, the back of your mind where memories are stored end up kind of being shut off, and they found that people had quite traumatic stuff. That part of their mind was not as active, so they couldn't actually have memories as well, which is really interesting actually, because I don't know if you've had like things happen in your life where they've been really, really bad, but I feel like, things maybe that have happened in my life a bit like that, I struggle to remember either before that or the actual incident themselves, which is, I think that's quite true,
Memory is such a curious thing. When I had EMDR therapy many years ago, and he explained, I don't know if this is scientific, but he said that traumatic memories, rather than being filed away like a normal memory, so you can recall them, they're just sort of floating around in your consciousness. And that's why you can have horrible flashbacks. Because I had a sort of period where I was just kept getting flashbacks, and it's so, it's as if you're back in some horrible memory. And I think the processes you're talking about is a similar thing. It's a way of integrating all the memories and you know, your brain is just a series of neurons all linking to each other. And if you've had trauma in your life, like, no wonder this amazing network is going to be a bit damaged. But the amazing thing about neural plasticity is that you can rewire your brain, and the techniques you're talking about, you've done it with yourself. It's amazing to see the transformation within you, and it's available to all of us now, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I think I would say, like, when I talk about the word like trauma, you know, like, it doesn't have to be such like a big thing. Like, a lot of people would say that there's a lot of people talk about trauma as even just, you know, when you're a kid, like being left for, I mean, I don't know how kind of deep you'd go into this and how much you would want to label that as trauma, but, you know, a lot of people would say even just being left, you know, too long as a kid in the supermarket or something would be quite traumatic for a little kid, and that's where you start developing these ideas of things, you know.
Oh, definitely. I read an amazing book. I've forgotten the title of the book right now, but it's by an author called George Pratt. And he talks about this. He calls it micro traumas. And he's saying that a micro trauma can impact your psyche as much as, you know, in a same but different way as, you know, a more serious trauma like abuse. But these micro traumas, they cause some kind of wiring in your brain that is not helping you. And when you can name them and acknowledge them, that's and go through the healing process. Like, one of my friends, her dog got put down when she was a kid. That's not like the worst thing ever, but it is. That's so sad when you're a kid and your dog is your best friend, and you come home and your parents have put it down. It's a betrayal, it's grief, and as a young person you can't cope with all of that, and it does some crazy stuff to your brain that doesn't help you. And if we can go back and just release all of that forgiveness and get ourselves back on track, then we can truly heal the past. The past suddenly looks different when you look at it through the eyes of compassion and kindness, like kindness to yourself and kindness to anyone who let you down in any way, because we're all just trying our best.
Yeah, that's the thing. As you say, like, yeah, to a kid, putting a dog down can seem quite traumatic. Yeah.
So over, you know, because the live experiences aren't happening yet, you know, we're not going to be able to go and hang out in the woods anytime soon. What's your current offerings online?
So as I say, I run the workshops.
Are they sort of same time every week, or how can people find out about them?
So they're on. I'm gonna because I've only just launched my website. Like, I think it was like yesterday. I really wanted to, you know, still really new. I need to post all the events on there, but they're on Eventbrite. So if you go onto Eventbrite and search for Life Shift, you can find them all on Meetup. But they should just be all on my website soon. So if you go to my website, it will just, yeah, it should give you all the information you need about upcoming ones. At the moment, I think there's one coming up on Saturday morning. At the moment, I'm trying to run them on Saturday mornings. I'm seeing how they go. I'm trying to find best times for them still.
Yeah, find times that you suit you and suit others.
Yeah. So they're still kind of, yeah, a bit. You have to check when they're coming up, really. But I try and run the weekly, basically, at the moment. Yeah.
And is there some final thought of something that's been on your mind, something you studied recently, something's just there that that maybe we missed today that you want to talk about? I'm going to have a think as well.
There's so many things, you know. There's so many things we can carry on talking about. Which has been, you know, awesome. Like, I feel like we can always talk about loads of stuff.
I know, go on for hours. So me and Panos used to make music together, but I think actually most of the time was us just chatting self-development stuff, wasn't it? It'd be like 30% music, 70% self-development.
Yeah. I'm actually studying NLP at the moment, which is super interesting. It's quite funny because, you know, going into this stuff, obviously you have a lot of people with different opinions about a lot of this kind of stuff and what's, you know, what's good, what's not. And like some people are like, oh, NLP, even coaches are like, oh, I don't like that, it's too structured. Well, I'm actually quite enjoying studying it because, once again, it's just another form and it is quite structured. But as you're talking about memories, I was reading this part about memories and how to kind of disassociate yourself from some of them. Have you ever heard about this, like submodalities? So just kind of seeing it from like a first person or a third person, and making the memories stronger in color, or like making them black and white, and you know, like it's so super powerful. Like, and I've been trying to do a lot of this recently, and I felt like it's really, really interesting exercise actually.
I studied NLP, so maybe some 5 or 6 years ago, and I've not looked into it again, but I remember there being loads of, again, it's like practical stuff, and also a lot of using your imagination to rewire. Is there a particular book that you're reading that you'd recommend, or where are you getting this information about NLP?
So at the moment I'm reading a book, and I had to read it for the course I'm studying. It's just called Introducing NLP, and it's really cool. It's just basically, you know, the basics, and it even says in that book that by the time it's written, probably things will have changed and stuff, because it is quite a fast moving industry. But yeah, I think that's really, really interesting. As we were talking about memories, it just kind of brought that to mind about something you can mess around with.
And what's the course you're studying?
It's called the people I'm studying with are called Change You. It's just NLP practitioner. Kind of like,
oh, awesome. So it's a specific NLP course that you're going through and studying about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I can't believe this hour has just absolutely flown by. It's been so lovely catching up with you and getting inspired by all your ideas.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
And I'll make sure below this video there'll be links to all of Panos's work, so you can check out his website, his Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please like and share it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And I love your comments. So please comment with any questions or anything that inspired you in today's video. Have a great evening. Thanks again, Panos.
Cool, thank you. Thanks so much.